Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. We're going to be talking about Palantir Technologies, especially as we see a little bit of a cool off, a little bit of selling pressure. And personally, we're going to be talking about why I don't really get too all up in arms about this. You can see a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt when we see some selling pressure across the media. What we do see is that change in perspective. All of a sudden, all these articles talking about, hey, look at the valuation now. You know, it's always traded at a high valuation. We've been talking about that. That is an important risk, especially at entry points in the 40s. The risk for downside potential is quite high. I think that's, everybody, a decent amount of people, I think, would agree on that. But we're going to be talking about Palantir at 42. What does that mean in the short term and especially in the long term for the stock? Now, we have a market that has record closes today in the green, and NVIDIA having a big rebound after this specific CEO made a really important statement that brought bullishness back to the semiconductor stocks. So if you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor, collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now pop it up here, Palantir closing here at 41.93, down a little bit more in the after hours. Trading volume at about 60 million. Now Palantir, even at $40 this year, that's a major accomplishment. You have the S&P 500 inclusion, doing very well in terms of the milestones that Palantir has reached. You've had multiple days and closes of consolidation here in the lower 40s, which are record closes near these all-time highs for Palantir, and has been doing a great well considering the run-up that we've seen in the last year. Just zoom out on Palantir here and look at this stock. I mean, a little bit of a coolback here is kind of warranted. However, let's talk about what this means in terms of valuation, in terms of short-term, long-term potential, and basically what's the time horizon for everybody. If we quickly look over here at options, you see actually a decent amount of puts are popping up here at the $40 strike price. What I think that's going to mean, we still have a decent amount of calls here at the 42, 43, but I think we're going to test a support level at the 40s. That's just kind of a psychological area. You've also seen resistance here, and sometimes when we see a little bit of a correction, those previous levels of resistance usually become support areas that are tested before they break through. Now, talking about what Jim Cramer comes out here to say. He says Palantir will stay expensive due to the Pentagon deals and rabid fans. We do have a big fan base behind Palantir. It is large on terms of the retail investment side, but institutional investment is starting to pile in, and you're especially seeing that with the passive buying with the S&P 500. Now, Cramer said that this latest earnings season would be critical for the overall market and investor portfolios. And what he specifically talks about with PLTR, saying it's one of the craziest stocks, and reiterated his view that it is a cold stock, saying that it is expensive and it will stay expensive. Talking about that it's going to stay expensive because its software is apparently beloved by the Pentagon as well as its rabid fans. Would you buy it up 439% in the last 2 years? Now, for anybody that believes in reverse Cramer theory, if he says something bearish or bullish, it usually goes opposite of whatever he calls. But he said, no, I definitely wouldn't short it. And it's an interesting statement there that he comes out and says that even though Palantir, everybody's talking about it trading at near these all-time highs and these record high levels, saying, no, I still wouldn't short it because people are scared of, I think, the momentum and where Palantir can really go. And I think $50 is still possible by the end of the year. Let me know down in the comments what you think about that. But an interesting article. This is what I talked about in the beginning of the video. You see here, Palantir, time to cash out, talking about the new AI bubble at 135 times its earnings, rating downgrade. You start to see what investors need to know. Like I said, this whole shift in momentum. And if we see Palantir that has a slight decrease in its price, and why I think it's important not to be too scared. Now, despite strong growth, economic, this is just going to talk about everything we already know. Talking about AI integration, the expansion of AIP, commercial segment gaining momentum. We talk about this all the time. You can go into the numbers here. We've seen this. Talk about the top line of numbers. What's really, really going to be on the table here in terms of volatility is what is the emphasis on valuation this time, and how are the investors going to trade it? Because we know Palantir is doing very well. Earnings, November 4th, there's going to be a lot of volatility that comes off of trading that. So talking about Palantir, in the near future, we definitely could see a possible correction. I personally could possibly see a correction, even if we see that Palantir could beat expectations. And that is just because it is trading at a high price, and right now people are waiting for that pullback, waiting for that profit cascade. However, I don't think a lot of people are going to short it because it's been biting them this whole time. And this is where Palantir kind of sits in a juicy zone. And talking about this because a lot of people are betting on its well-positioned long-term success in the software industry. And it's a leading competitor in the industry, establishing itself as a leader in all AI platforms, bringing true utility to Palantir. And its access to this enterprise data is excellent to run these efficient AI data models. So talking about this, that the company is expanding and its consumer footprint is materially increasing over the coming years are big benefits to its own economics and its business. So talking about its valuation, of course, people are going to be a little skeptical. But however, Palantir is continuing to outpace the doubters. And looking here, November 4th, 11 earnings per share bullish revisions in the last 90 days. Wall Street is continuing to set the bar high for Palantir, and they are continuing to beat those expectations. So in the short term, yes, the risk for downside potential is very high. However, in the long term, 41.93, if Palantir goes to $100 in the next few years, that is where you could see this still as a cheap stock. But getting it right now, trying to trade at these highs and even at these near record highs, pretty high risk that does come behind that. That's with any type of individual stock. That's with anything that's trading at record highs. You do have that higher risk for downside potential. Now, what happened in the market? We got the Dow Jones climbing another 300 points to another record close on Wednesday. What we have are earnings and corporate earnings reports that have been continuing to do very well across the board for the S&P. You got Morgan Stanley here, rising 6.5%. United Airlines, better than expected results, coming 12.4% higher. And about 50 S&P 500 stocks have posted third quarter earnings so far, with 79% of those beating expectations. So the fact that we have the economy that is remaining resilient, even in terms of times of tensions that are increasing via geopolitical events. You also have an election that is coming up. But however, with September's rally that we saw, with the first 50 basis point cut with the actual interest rates, this is implying a positive October. We've seen a positive October compared to the more what we've seen bearish September and Octobers in the past. And what we do have here in the final 2 months of election years, the market has risen about almost every time, with all sizes, styles, and sectors posting positive returns. Investors are very aware of what we've seen for historical trading patterns in terms of an election year, so the momentum is behind the market. And with that broader market, I think we're going to continue to see these record highs being set before we have the election that does occur. How Palantir fits into that equation is, I think, it's a possible opportunity or probability to ride that momentum regardless of valuation and possibly be testing the 50s by the end of the year if we do not see too many people that are starting to trade off the valuation concern. So it's wishy-washy. It's both ways. That's what the market does. NVIDIA, though, rising Wednesday. And what's going on here? Remember ASML, the CEO that came out. They changed their guidance, basically a pre-earnings, basically expectations that they aren't doing as well. They're a major supplier in the semiconductor stocks. We saw a lot of those stocks have a decline as the company lowered its full year sales forecast due to the weaker demand for non-AI chips. Now remember, non-AI chips. However, we saw a rebound in the market with the AI semiconductor stocks. The rebound appears partly due to the optimism around AI-related demand. And the ASML CEO here stated that the company remains quite optimistic about long-term growth in the AI segment on a conference call. So, less demand in non-AI chips, but he's saying here, quite optimistic about the demand in AI chips. We see a big rebound in a lot of those semiconductor stocks, especially with NVIDIA right here, up about another 3% of the day. big reversal that was triggered there. We'll see what happens in terms of the next price targets for NVIDIA, which are all kind of sitting around 150 right now in terms of the bullish perspective. What do you think about that? What do you think about Palantir? $50, high valuation, getting in right now. What are your opinions? Let me know down in the comments. Peace out, take care, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.